Good morning, everyone. Welcome to It's Your Life, Have It Your Way on Facebook Live. My name is Jeanette Larson, and I'm your host. It's Your Life, Have It Your Way is brought to you by Growth Unlimited, and I'm really happy to see everyone this morning. This is a Monday morning, June 1st, 2020, and we've had a very interesting weekend. Last Monday, something horrible happened. A gentleman by the name of George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota, was arrested on suspicion of doing something wrong. During the process of the arrest, Mr. Floyd evidently did not resist. He was not disrespectful to police officers. But in the process of the arrest, a police officer placed his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck for a period of over 9 minutes. Through different biological processes, Mr. Floyd lost his life. Immediately there was outrage, rightfully so. That is police brutality. The officer involved did not use appropriate techniques to correct the situation. There was no violence or resistance on the part of Mr. Floyd, and a man lost his life. Unacceptable. Immediately an outcry went up to have the officers that were involved arrested and prosecuted. The officer who was responsible for Mr. Floyd's death was arrested, has been charged with third-degree murder and manslaughter, with an investigation going onward that will ascertain whether those are the proper charges. The investigation in the other 3 officers involved is ongoing. That is as it should be. These people should be held responsible for the choices that they made. I don't think there's anyone in our country who disagrees with that. However, even though those actions are in process right now, there are people in our country who have continued complaining, demonstrating, exercising their First Amendment rights to let the world know how upset they are about the entire process. And that, too, is totally acceptable. I am never, ever going to advocate for taking away someone's right to free speech. However, I am getting really, really, really tired of people using or actually abusing that right by claiming that it is their right and they should not be stopped from doing it. However, they believe that it is also their right to take away the rights of other people. And that is wrong. That is a problem. In the last week, culminating this weekend, we have had what has now approached to be worldwide rioting, not demonstrating, not protesting, rioting, where the rights of other people have been taken away. Businesses have been looted. Buildings have been burnt. People have been restricted from their right of free speech and liberty because it is too dangerous to go into areas where the people who are asserting their rights are. And that's a problem. It is your right in the United States to speak your mind. It is your right to have your thoughts heard, your opinions heard. And if you see injustice, it is not only your right, it is your responsibility to do what needs to be done to make it stop. However, your choice in what you do to make it stop is also a responsibility. And you do not have the right to violate the rights of other people in order to get your voice heard. Now, there are a lot of different pieces to this whole picture. And I am going to focus on, about 3 different areas today. Because when you make the choice to assert your rights in a way that takes away the rights of others, although it may seem to you like you are taking control and you are working to regain your power, you are actually demonstrating your inability to be effective. You are actually demonstrating the very same thing that you are trying to fight. Think about it a moment. The people who looted businesses and destroyed the livelihoods of people who had worked for years to build their business in the name of asserting their right to free speech. Are they any better than the officer who knelt on the neck of George Floyd and caused his death? Now, if your mindset is, well, we deserve to do this because we're tired of being oppressed, I'm sorry, that's bull. Everyone faces oppression one way or another. It's the very nature of living. The very fact that human beings are all out there looking for ways that they can assert their rights and take control of their rights creates situations, however unjust, where people are going to step in and do things that they shouldn't be doing that take away the rights of other people. That does not give any individual person or any group of people the right to engage in activity that destroys the rights of others. That is not asserting your right to freedom of speech. That is being a thug. That is being a hooligan. That is being unlawful. That is illegal. That is unethical. That is as reprehensible as the behavior that cost Mr. Floyd his life. If you truly want to regain or gain control of your life, it involves taking the responsibility for yourself of doing what needs to be done to get the things done that you need to do without harming other people. It involves being intelligent enough and using that intelligence to decide what to do to get those things done. If you don't have those skills and you want control of your life, it is your responsibility to get those skills. Ultimately, it is your responsibility, if you want control of your life, to take control of your life using means that do not violate the rights of other people and other individuals. And it's time we get off the pity pot and start doing what needs to be done to take control of our lives. And it is difficult, particularly since most of the people in our country have been raised to believe that it is the responsibility of somebody else to take care of them, to do for them, to give them what they want. Here again, that's not taking control of your life. That's not increasing personal power. That's bowing down to other people to get them to give you what you want. And as long as you have to look to somebody else to get what you want, you don't have personal power. You are not taking control of your life. There are ways, there are techniques, there are methods that you can use that will allow you to take control of your life without violating the rights of other people. And if what you want is control of your life, if you want certain things like bigotry, discrimination, other things that are not acceptable to you in your life to happen, you need to start using the skills and building the additional skills you need to make that happen without destroying other people in the process. And as I said, our society has not taught you to do that. Well-meaning though our parents were, well-meaning though society has been, it has weakened the people in our country. When I compare now what went on this weekend with the choices that were made by the founding fathers of our country, our founding fathers are turning over in their graves. The very basis of the reasons our country was formed are in question at this point in time. And it's because we are not taking the responsibility of the things that taking action on the things that made this country great. Our Constitution was inspired, and if followed, has the potential of providing the kind of life for every American that every American wants. But the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are not exclusive of responsibility. And it's time we get off from being focused on what we want and figuring whatever we do to get what we want is okay because it's our right. And start focusing on the responsibility of everyone's rights and modeling our behaviors on the basis of what is right to make it right for everyone. That's how we build personal power. That's how we support the greatest country in the world. Now, responsibility. We not only need to build skills that allow us to act with responsibility, we need to be able to discern what is going on around us. And this leads to the other two areas that I wanted to talk about today. Next, let's talk about the media. Once again, during the years that we have been growing up, most of the people who are alive on the earth now grew up in an age where there was television and radio and internet and all the other things that we look at now to get the information that we make our decisions on. One of the interesting things that I have observed over the last several years, and that has been observed by other people, even people in the media, is that we have to realize that the people that are in the media are in the same position we are too. They are each trying to build personal power. And their personal power, a lot of it is built through the influence that they have based on their positions in the media. So, when they get on the air and they start trying to impart the news and impart information, it's colored with their impressions and their desires to build their own power, their own influence. And their presentation of the news is based on how it's going to affect what happens to their reputation, to the way people are influenced by them, and that colors what they say and what they do. Let me give you an example. On Saturday, I live in the Sacramento, California area. There has been a great deal of unrest in California over the situation with George Floyd. People have, in terms of trying to build their power and their influence, people have not only used the right of free speech to let the world know how they feel about what went on, which is, as I said earlier, totally appropriate, but they've also taken advantage of situations and moved forward in ways that damaged other people, hence the looting, the burning, the defacing of public property, the assaulting of other people, the attacking of our police officers. The media, in order to deal with the situation, particularly one personality on KFBK radio in Sacramento, California, I believe her name is Amanda Carter, or I believe the last name is Carter, was hosting a radio show Saturday afternoon. She was very, very disturbed by the behavior that was going on in Sacramento, very concerned, and she kept calling for radio call-in callers to present ideas of how things could get calmed down. On the surface, a very, very noble cause. However, given the liberal attitudes that go on in the state of California, she was getting a lot of calls from people that were sympathetic to the illegal activities of the demonstrators, or excuse me, I'm not going to call them demonstrators because they were rioting. And callers were talking about how we had to protect the rights of these rioters. They were not holding the rioters responsible for the illegal behaviors that they were taking. They were not educated enough to understand the difference between rioting and the use of free speech. And they were struggling with their own feelings of being defiled by the illegal actions that were going on. And it basically ended up being a complaint fest. Lots of complaints, no real ideas. Then a caller called in, and basically what he was saying in his call is that the people who were breaking the law needed to be held accountable. They needed to be arrested. And he was decrying the policies that we'll get into in a minute of the California government and the legislators and the officials that were allowing these kinds of behaviors to go on, tying the hands of the police officers to be able to deal with the situation. Amanda's response to his call was that he was not doing anything to calm things down. She felt that he was raising more ire of the people and it was going to cause problems. And she cut off his call. In doing that, she violated his right to free speech. Particularly when she had asked for opinions. But in building her own influence and trying to create the reputation that was most politically advantageous to her, she committed the same kind of behavior that the police officer who knelt on the neck of George Floyd created. She violated a basic right of the citizen of the United States to have his opinion heard. He was not breaking the law. He was not doing anything illegal. In fact, he was doing what she had asked for people to do, and she took away his right. I see this happen a lot with the press. The press reports the things that are the most sensational, that will get the highest viewership or listenership, that will create the names that they want for themselves as personalities in the press, that will build their notoriety and their influence. Another example is there were hours and hours and hours of blow-by-blow coverage of the riots going on. There was mere mention after an elected official mentioned these people the next day about the people who were walking away because they didn't want to be involved in that, and about the people who got up early the next morning and appeared in the areas where the devastation had been done to start the cleanup. Not as newsworthy, not as notorious, not as exciting, and so they didn't get the coverage. And yet, in terms of the best of society and the best for society, which of those sets of news was most productive? Okay, this being said, we need to be aware. Anytime we choose to listen to a newscast or any form of media, anytime we get on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, anytime we listen to the radio, that what we are hearing is simply the opinion of the person presenting it. Once again, over the last several decades, the goals that were originally set up in terms of broadcasting the news seem to have eroded. In our new society, where the focus is on me, on what I want, and what I need, and my rights, concern for the public as a whole has eroded. And the bias that we see in the media, the bias we see in technology, consistently shows up over and over and over. And it doesn't matter what political affiliation we have. We are all affected negatively by it because we buy into it. If it's something that fits our own agenda, we jump onto it. And we start grabbing it and saying, hey, yeah, this is where I'm going to go. This is what I'm going to do. Once again, we do not take the responsibility we have to exercise our freedoms in a responsible, ethical manner. We do not look at anything but who we are and what we want. And we look for people to ally with who fit that model for us. If we want to take control of our lives, if we want to have control and we don't want other people telling us what to do, we need to use our heads. We need to recognize what is going on. We need to look at what is the motive behind what we're being presented, and then make the judgment of whether or not it is something we want to ally with. Enough said about the media. It's just time we wake up. The third area I want to talk about this morning is government and our elected officials. We have, for the last, since March of this year, the entire world has reeled because of a pandemic that is believed by many people to have been created by the government. Oh, COVID-19 is a real illness. And COVID-19 has caused devastation. However, just in my own sphere, and I've watched what's gone on in the world, but just in my own state, in my own community, in my own country, I have become more and more and more dissatisfied and frustrated with the actions that the people that I helped elect have taken in terms of the well-being and the overall good of the community. Choices have been made by these people that have caused real problems for a lot of people. Decisions have been made that when you look at them, you can see the underlying, as we talked about with the media, the same thing happens with the people we elect. The people who are in politics are typically, although they claim that they are there for the public good and that's why they've chosen to work in public service. The behaviors that they demonstrate seem to deny that. Underlying every single decision they make, every single thing they advocate for, is their own ambitions for additional political power. And the eyes of the public, if they don't look at what's really going on, just simply assume that they are there for the benefit of the public good, and that their intent is to help the people. And as a result of that, we have allowed these public officials to develop agendas that increase their own status in the eyes of the unsuspecting public. And underneath that is their intentions of greater public office or greater power over the people. And they assert that power and create issues for the people that they are supposed to be representing. And this is happening in every step of the way. In the current situation with the demonstrations, riots that have been happening, there are reasons that these have been allowed to occur. First of all, there are organizations that have been reported as stepping in and organizing. When the protest started, it was people who were upset about what happened to Mr. Floyd, upset about the abuse of power that went into the activities that caused his death. And the original call was for change, to get back to normal. But here again, we had these underlying factions that preyed on the innocence of these people who were saying, this is wrong, this shouldn't happen. And organizations have stepped into the process. There are, I listened to an interview with the former head of the Homeland Security Agency of the United States government this morning, and he identified 3 different groups that have been involved in the protests going on. The first group were the people who started the protests, who were saying this isn't right, we want it to stop. We want legal action taken against the people who hurt Mr. Floyd. These were the seeds of the process. Then another faction pulled in. This is an organized faction. These are groups of people, and you probably know the names of many of them. I'm not going to include them in this broadcast. That's something we can talk about at a future time if we need more detail. But these are organized groups of people who may have been organized originally to protest the situation, but the organization has moved to a more radical level, and these are the people that have moved in, demanding that their rights be honored, and yet figuring that their right involved the right to hurt other people. These are the people who began the uprising, the assault on police officers, the assault on other public officials trying to maintain order, violating the rights of citizens to be in places where they normally were able to be, and moving on into taking actions that were looting and burning and really violating the rights of people. And they're organized. They use technology. They bus people in illegally from other states who have a history of being able to move quickly enough to get away with these kinds of things. They do a lot of rabble-rousing of the first group of people that we talked about, and in the process of trying to convert them from using their natural, normal, acceptable outrage in ways that are unacceptable and illegal. And because we all want to belong, because we're all upset, people have jumped on the bandwagon and joined them. It's what I call the sheep effect. If it's new and exciting, if it's something that we think might help us get what we want, we kind of fall off the wagon in terms of our own beliefs and values and join up because somebody else seems bigger and has more influence than we do. And so we join with them and we become like them. Under the guise of that gives us more power, but does it really? It appears to me that by joining someone like that, you're actually giving up your power. You're falling in with somebody else's wishes and somebody else's beliefs and giving up the values and the principles that have made you who you are. That's not gaining power. That's losing power. That's becoming the victim of the people you're following. Okay, the third group of people are just simply the destructive people. The people who come in and want to loot and destroy just simply for the sheer joy of doing that. These are lawless people. These are people who are engaged in criminal activity, and their focus is on being criminal. And once we've taken the first step to join with those organizations who are advocating that control can be taken by engaging in a concerted, organized effort that may or may not be contain illegal activities. And then the third group of people come in who take it up one more step in terms of the illegal activities. And the first people from the first two groups join the third group. That's when we have the kinds of riots that have cost lives, caused physical damage to people, caused financial damage, and destroyed the livelihoods of well-meaning, honest, hard-working people who've invested their lives into providing services and tools to make the lives of the individual member of society better. And that results in finally the government stepping in and saying, we're done. It's over. We're going to step in and stop this from happening. We're going to bring in the National Guard. We're going to concert our police efforts to make sure that things are taken care of. And then people get hurt. People get arrested. That results in even more interesting things happening in terms of our own personal responsibility. These are fairly isolated because I think a lot of times once people reach that point, they do look at it and say, okay, fine, I made this choice. I'm going to lay in the bed that I made. However, there are enough people out there that still figure that they are victims of the police. of the military when they have pushed things to a point that the authorities have had to take the steps to step in and stop it. And these people, when things happen that they don't want to have happen, they cry foul. It's not fair. You shouldn't hurt me. Well, I'm sorry. There are consequences to every action. And if you make the choice to do things that put you in a position of either losing or giving up your power, those consequences are deserved. They are going to happen. Case in point, the media interviewed a young woman who was complaining because she had been tear gassed and it burned her eyes. And the reporter asked her, well, you were around a store that was being looted. And she said, but I didn't do any looting. And the reporter talked to her a little bit further to find out what was going on. And as the story came out, she didn't go into the store and actually involve herself in the process of looting. Instead, she drove the car, the getaway car. And in her eyes, that made her innocent and a victim. I had a really, really difficult time with that. She was part of that process. She was engaged in illegal activity. In my book, that puts her in the same kind of driver's seat as the boyfriend that she said was in the store looting. If you don't want to pay the consequences for the behaviors, don't be involved in the behavior. And in a situation like this, there is no different level of behavior. Driving the getaway car, or even being in the getaway car, or for that matter, being outside the store when the looting is going on, put you in the line of fire. You are as responsible as the people who are ripping the store off for what is going on. If you don't like it, don't do it. Had she not been there, she would not have been tear gassed. In my own city, myself included, on Saturday night, people walked away from the area where the demonstrating was going on when it started getting ugly. It wasn't what they were there for. It was not going in a direction that was going to be productive for anyone. The best action in that kind of situation was simply to get out of the way, so that it was not a situation where you had to be involved in the illegal activity, and it was a way to avoid having the negativity happen to you. By the same token, Saturday afternoon, I was in the Sacramento area on business. There was an area of business that I had appointments in to meet with business people to conduct services for them. I tried to go into that area and discovered that there was a police presence there because of demonstrations going on. I left the area. I lost the money. The business owners that I was to meet with were closing their businesses down, and trying to protect things so that they didn't have destruction and be attacked by the people who were engaging in lawless behavior. All of us made the responsible choice to deal with the situation in a way that would not harm anyone else. As a result, we suffered loss. We are the victims. But we take the responsibility for the choices we made. And although I lost several $100s because I was not able to meet with the businesses in that area, I didn't suffer the physical ill effects that I could have suffered by inserting myself into the situation. That's using personal power. That was a conscious choice. That was a decision I made, and I believe it was the right decision. Whatever decision it is that you choose to make, accept the consequences. Realize if you choose to engage in an environment where there's illegal behavior going on, you're going to be held accountable for that illegal behavior, whether or not you are directly involved in doing it. That's using personal power. I am not here today to tell people what is right, what is wrong. That is a personal choice for yourself. What I am here today to do is to tell you that your rights end when they start violating the rights of other people. And that your rights involve responsibility to discern what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. We didn't do a lot of covering this, but your rights also involve the responsibility of being sure that the people that you help elect to positions do the things that you want them to do. And if you don't like what's going on, it is your responsibility to use legal and ethical means to get changes made. When you cross the line of violating someone else's rights to assert your rights, you have crossed the line into unacceptable behavior. You become the same kind of person as the person who took the life of George Floyd. If that's what you want for life, realize you will have the consequences of that kind of behavior to deal with. It's time we start taking personal responsibility. It's time we start taking control of our lives in the right way instead of looking to other people to pander to what we want simply because we want it. It is my hope that the people in our country wake up and start looking at what's really going on and making direct decisions based on looking ahead at the consequences of the different alternatives of the choices that are presented to them. That's the responsibility of true freedom. That's the thing that makes our country great. That's the thing that will keep our country great. But it's not going to happen unless we are willing to invest what we need to invest to make it happen. Now, looking to the future. For the last roughly 3 months, we have been doing these Facebook Live broadcasts every weekday morning. And I have appreciated the following that we have built. But I'm a little confused at this point in time, because my focus for doing this broadcast to begin with was to provide a forum and a way for people to have a chance to let their feelings be known, and to help people look for ways to take control of their lives and improve their lives the way they wanted it. All the way through, I have invited people to ask for what they like. And I've tried to provide resources for people to attain the things that they've talked about wanting. My confusion comes up because I've had lots of people ask for different things, and I've tried to cover them in the broadcasts that we've talked about. I have offered services for these people to get additional information and gain additional help. And to this point, I have lots of requests from people asking for me to give them things and do things for them. But I'm not seeing a whole lot of interest in anybody actually doing anything for themselves. And this kind of goes along with what we've been talking about today. Ultimately, if you want a better life, it's up to you. There are resources available to you that can help you make your life what you want it to be. But you've heard me say it before, there is no free lunch. If you want a better life, if you want something different in terms of how your life is, that is not going to be attained by looking to somebody else to supply it for you. The reason I'm saying this is last week I've had a lot of requests for information on how people could make more money, how they could create more financial solidarity for themselves in their lives, particularly with the situation that we've all faced because of the pandemic. As a result, I switched in the middle of a process going through a series of trainings on how to increase productivity. I switched to looking at different alternatives of how people could create businesses of their own. I offered free services to help people do that, to the point that I scheduled an online webinar this morning that people did have to register for to participate in, but it was free, telling people how to set up a particular kind of business that has actually proven to be very productive for me. There were no takers. And my confusion is, what's going on here? I'm being told by viewers that they want these things, but when push comes to shove, they're not willing to even register for a free training to learn how to make it happen. It's frustrating from my end. I want to help, but it's not worth my time if the help that's offered is not accepted. I spend a lot of time and a lot of effort in research and planning and coordinating and preparation to make these things happen. Because I'm told that people want them. And then people don't engage. So I need to know, what is it you want? And more importantly, what are you willing to do to get the kind of life you want to have? I plan to continue these Facebook Live sessions. But if you want something specific, you're going to have to take control of your life and be willing to actually engage and do something to make it happen. I need to know from viewers what it is you want and what it is you are willing to do to make it happen. This world is not built on somebody else doing it for you. If that is what you're looking for, you need to go elsewhere. However, if you are truly interested in taking control of your life and having your life your way, there are resources, there are helps, there are tools that I can share with you that can help make that happen. Please let me know what it is that you want and need. Let me know what you're willing to do. Like this presentation. Share it with your friends. If you're interested in actually making something of your life and making some changes that are going to make it better, book that appointment with me. Let's talk about what we can do together to make things better in your life. But involve yourself. Do something to make your life better. Quit sitting back and waiting for somebody else to do it for you, because that just leaves you a victim. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye now.